Hi, my name is Dean. You just heard a story about Bobby, a young boy who was bitter, hurt, and angry about everything. Like Bobby, I was orphaned as a child. However, unlike Bobby, who lost his parents in a car accident, I was abandoned by mine. What I remember most about my family is the yelling, the screaming, the hitting, the throwing things. Just drove a deep wedge in my family. I'm sure there were some good things that happened, but there were so many painful things, I just lost all the memories of anything that was good. When I was 8 years old, I remember I was in 3rd grade. I came home from school and my mom said, "Your dad's left and he's not coming back." From there, my mom did the best she could to raise us, to take care of us. But she was fighting her own battles. As an 8-year-old boy, I watched my mom become addicted to the bottle. I concluded that there probably wasn't no God in my life or at all. Because if there was, why was I left without a dad? Why did my brother and sister just leave? I do remember being drawn to a Lutheran church. I could see it across the cornfields from our house where we lived in Rosemont. I remember walking through the fields to go to church there. And then an elderly couple would pick me up in the wintertime. It was there that God made his presence and protection known to me. I'll always be grateful for that church and those kind people that helped me in such a fragile time of my life. During the next 3 years, we moved from Rosemont to Hastings to Inver Grove Heights to South St. Paul, where my mom met an interstate truck driver. He became her number one priority. One spring day, I was in 6th grade. Got home from school and noticed my mom had the TV and the stereo packed in the car. And she said, "Well, we're going to go over to South Dakota." So we packed up our stuff and this silver Mercury Monterey, went to Wagner, South Dakota, where my grandmother lived. The next morning, my mom said goodbye, said I'll be back on a Wednesday or a Thursday. She never came back. I never saw her again after that. I stayed with my grandmother for about 2 weeks, my brother and I. And then my dad, who I haven't seen in 3 years, pulled into the driveway. Says, "Well, you're coming back to Minnesota with me." This was a Sunday night. Monday morning, we get in his car. We go over to Dakota County Courthouse in Hastings, Minnesota. We walk into the courthouse, and my dad says, "Their mother has abandoned them. I have given up custody of them 3 years ago. I don't want them. I release them to the custody of the state of Minnesota." It was at that time in my life where I realized that my mom was not coming back. He signs some papers and walks out. That was more painful than the first time, I think. I was just numb. There we were placed in an emergency foster home for about a month. Then at 11, I was placed with my foster family, the Robs. They seemed like nice enough people, but I wasn't really ready to accept another family. My foster parents had assured me that they were just there to love me and protect me, and that nothing was going to happen to me. Unfortunately, I thought that's what my real family was supposed to do, and I just didn't receive them very well. My foster parents said that they had decided to keep me as a permanent child instead of a temporary, which was originally intended. I thought that was nice. I mean, it showed me that maybe they did, want me. So a few months later, we went down to Oklahoma, where it was the first time I met my Aunt Bobby, my foster mom's sister. She was very sweet, and it would just go out of her way to make sure that I was happy and protect me and watch over me, and just if I needed anything. And with her compassion, or actually her and my foster mom's compassion, and the things that they were telling me and trying to teach me about Jesus, at 13 I accepted Christ into my heart. And in a nutshell, Christ's love was so foreign to me that it scared me and I ran from it. Instead, I'd fallen into the same trap that my parents fell into the drugs and alcohol, which destroyed them. And even though I knew that would probably happen, I went there anyway because that's where I was familiar with. I was comfortable there. 8 years later, I met my wife, Sue. And we were married in 1985. About 2 years later, after the birth of our first daughter, we were divorced because of the lifestyle that I was continuing to live. We remained divorced for 4 years. And at that time, I began to realize what kind of love that Sue and Jesus were offering me. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, if anyone is in Christ Jesus, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. That verse really started to take control of my life and made me realize I didn't have to be the person that I had become. I didn't have to be my parents. I could be somebody different. So I began to pray that the Lord would first really, just set me free of my drugs and alcohol, and that He would restore my walk with Him that I had so briefly at 13 when I first received Him, and mostly that He would reunite my family. In 1991, Jesus did just that. Sue and I were remarried, and shortly after that, we moved to Minnesota. There are times where I would still use the drugs, and it wasn't until the birth of our fourth daughter that I finally surrendered everything to Jesus. We have learned to trust Jesus with everything in our lives, concerning our families, concerning what decisions we make. Because of what Jesus has done for me, and He has given me more family than I could ever hope for. He's given me a beautiful, loving wife, 8 great kids. He's also added a great son-in-law and a beautiful little granddaughter. So even though earlier in my life, as a child, when my family was being torn apart and taken away from me, Jesus was preparing an even bigger family for me, more family than I could hope for. In short, what Jesus has done for me, I know He can do the same for you. And if any of you are wondering if God's love is real, what you see before you is a living example of God's love. And not just for me, but for you. Just look around this room. There are many other proofs of God's love. And all you got to do is ask.